after this, I think people are going to, even if they don't decide to dine out, they're going to think, they're going to think about carry out for, even a Lincoln Inn or a meal from anywhere else. So, which they probably would never have considered. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Fanaticos too. How you doing, Jerry? Good. Before I call roll, I wanted to thank everyone for being here tonight, including those people who are attending remotely and for those who are watching on Channel 14 or streaming live. As noted at the top of the agenda, the governor has issued an executive order in March that allows the commission members to participate remotely. Tonight, Commission member Chris Doe has called in. For those, for those in attendance tonight, we have set up the room to meet the CDC recommended distancing guidelines and executive orders from the governor. The city has also made several accommodations for the public to provide comments on the agenda items. With that, I'd like to call the meeting to order this April 22nd, 2020, and ask for a roll call.
Becker.
Here.
Buckley. O'Flaherty.
Here.
Klein. Here. Doe.
Here.
Wright.
Here.
Chair Maxwell.
Here.
We have a quorum.
With that, I'd like to move to the approval of the agenda. Any additions or deletions?
I move approval.
First, approved by Klein, second?
I said. I defer to Jerry.
Go ahead.
Seconded by Jerry. So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Same sign. So moved. With that, I'll go to the approval of the minutes for April 8th, 2020, and ask if there are any additions or deletions to them. If not, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
I move to approve as written.
Moved by O'Flaherty. Second?
Second.
Seconded by Jerry. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. So moved. With that, I'd like to move to the public participation portion. We have several people that have asked to speak tonight. When I call your name, if you would come to the podium and give us your name and address.
This is Chair Maxwell. This will be the public participation items not on the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry, public participation is not on the agenda. And if there's anybody that would like to speak to anything that is not on the agenda, please come forward. If not, I'll move to new business. The first item is the continued public hearing for the petition of Vetnus Tech Services LLC for approval of the rezoning, preliminary and final development plans and plat of subdivision for a data center, approximately 505 acres of property generally located east of Route 23 and south of Gurler Road. With that, I believe the city will be making the presentation.
Yeah, you have a staff report in your packet. At the beginning here, I would note that we do have the attorney for Project Ventus Tech Services, Carl Camilucci, in the audience, available for any questions. Also calling in is Matt Fillmore. Matt is the engineer for Project Ventus, so he's available for any questions. We also have calling in the city engineer, Zach Gill, and also city attorney Matt Rose is calling in, available for any questions as we go forward. So the staff report in your packet, as noted, this is a continued hearing from the April 8th commission meeting. Hearing was continued. We did send out another notice to owners within the 250 feet of the site on April 3rd, noting the new hearing date. Since that meeting, we did receive a schematic engineering plan, more detail. That's why we continued it, to get a more detailed plan. So you have that additional plan along with the others that were submitted in addition to the plat of subdivision. So those will be the preliminary and final development plans that are more in line with the Unified Development Ordinance required for planned developments. You have up on the screen in your package showing the subject site. Again, it's a proposed data center. They're proposing to annex the property, generally located east of Route 23 and south of Gurla Road. Once annexed into the site, the UDO requires, into the city, the UDO requires single-family residential zoning, so they're proposing to rezone it from single-family to PDI, Planned Development Industrial, which is the same zoning classification that's on the Ferreira Canning Company site to the north. Also requesting approval of the preliminary and final development plans and also the plat of subdivision, which was previously submitted, and you have a copy again. There's been some action by the City Council leading up to tonight's hearing on March 9th. The council did approve a pre-development agreement with Ventus Tech Services to establish the city's intent to properly annex and rezone the site into the subject site. The agreement also established the intent to extend the financial incentives, including property tax abatement, through the Dekalb County Enterprise Zone program. Back in January, the council did also approve an extension to the Dekalb County Enterprise Zone map back in January to include the subject property. And also part of that approval was the approval of part of the incentives was the high impact knowledge-based companies or data centers. Part of the approval that had a minimum of 800 million of investment. Beg your pardon?
On the phone.
I think someone was just joining.
Joining, okay. And then on April 2nd, just recently, a few weeks ago, the Dekalb County Enterprise Zone approved the memorandum of understanding to deliver these benefits, incentive benefits to Ventus Tech Services. And this, on April 13th, the council did approve on first reading the annexation and development agreement for Project Ventus on first reading. That would approve sets out the process to approve the annexation, the rezoning, and the plans, along with the plat of subdivision. The second reading will occur on next Monday, April 27th, in front of the council. Also on April 27th, there will be a public hearing and action on the vacation of Kriegel Road through the site. So the commission is reviewing the rezoning, not really the annexation, but the rezoning of the property, making sure it meets the findings of fact, also reviewing the preliminary and final development plan, and also the plat of subdivision. The council will, of course, approve all these two in addition to the actual annexation of the property and the plat of vacation for Kriegel Road. Once annexed into the site and all the approvals, mass grading is anticipated to start on the site very quickly. That will start in early May. The petitioner is proposing initial investment of more than $800 million to construct the data center facility with an option to expand additional phases in the future. There'll be a skilled workforce consisting of high-wage technology professionals and will include a minimum of 40 jobs, high-paying jobs. The rezoning request and plan approval will allow development of a data center, generate new business opportunities in the area, support existing commerce, spur increased property values, and other development opportunities. Over the next 20 years, a proposed data center is projected to yield tax revenue for the participating taxing bodies that's comparable to the 5 largest existing companies in the city combined. That's even with the tax abatements. So looking at the site plan that was provided, you can see on the far eastern part of the site is the initial data center building. The access coming off of Peace Road will be extended into the site. This is a data center, the highly secure location, so there'll be secured locations into the site. There also is, just to the southwest of the building will be a substation, partially owned by the data center company and ComEd. As noted, Kriegel Road, so this is the subject site, Gurla Road, Route 23 on the west. This is Peace Road, Kriegel Road here. There'll be access under Kriegel Road 2. The current right-of-way on Kriegel Road is proposed to be vacated and turned into a private drive. So all the accesses into the site will be controlled. On the south end of the site, there'll be a public turnaround, but there'll be no public access to the internal drive. Those will be all security-controlled access points. So Kriegel Road going north, one can still turn around. There's not blocking off at Kriegel Road south of the subject site. That still will be able to be used. And there'll be with this a new, it's going to mention a few times in the report, a new roadway that will be constructed just to the east of the site. You can see it here labeled preferred new roadway location. This is Project Ventus in the red here. This is Gerler Road, Kriego Road, be vacated. This light blue shows the Ferrera Candy Company site, the Route 23 on the west. So there'll be a new road, north-south road, about a mile long from Gerler Road to Kesslinger, just to the east of the site. There's already preliminary engineering plans been developed, or in the process of being developed for this, and hopefully that road will be completed by end of the year, and that will offer another north-south access to kind of make up for the loss of Kriego Road. And I'll go into that a little bit more later. So the vacation of Kriego Road is important to the applicant with the high security needs of the operation. They'll also be starting grading fairly shortly after annexation, so it's important that that road be vacated. It can have a public access through their campus. The road to the east of the site will be 66-foot wide right-of-way, 2 12-foot driving lanes. That's similar to the existing Kriego Road, so it'll be a road very similar to that. The building footprint shown, the initial building is about 970,000 square foot. Include, of course, parking and landscaped areas. There's a mechanical yard shown around the building. That's a general footprint for that area. There'll be security fencing surrounding the site. We did get some sample building, or pretty detailed building elevations showing the materials. In general, they'll develop more details, are working on that, but precast concrete wall panels in the lower half of the building, metal wall panels on the upper half. Majority of the buildings will be about 54 feet in height and just under 57 at the highest point. The maximum height in the industrial district, light industrial and HI, is 75 feet. The height of the Ferrera Distribution Center building that's under construction will be about 47 to 51 feet, so very comparable in terms of height. They did provide us a image here showing how the first data center building will look as seen from Kriego Road, or Gerler Road just to the east of the site, and then at the intersection of Kriego Road and Gerler Road, looking at the building, just to kind of give an idea how that building will look from those locations. We also did receive a landscape plan, which is provided in your packets, part of the preliminary and final plan, showing landscaping around the initial phase of the development that will be installed during the first phase of the development. Also showing along Route 23 landscaping, and there'll be a berm there, and they're showing at this stage 30 additional trees beyond what's required in the UDO. This landscape berm and landscaping will be installed at future phases. It won't be installed right away with initial building because it is quite a distance away from the initial building, which would be at the far eastern part of the site. So that setback, or that landscaping, the berm, will very much, or very similar to what's going to be proposed at the Chicago West Business Center just to the north, in terms of a berm and additional landscaping too, because there are some single-family homes just on the west side of Route 23 there. You do have some development standards, part of the approval. The setbacks along Route 23, there was a slight change from the initial staff report you got for the April 8th hearing. That was increased from 150 feet to 400 feet. And there is also accessory structures like a guardhouse at the entrance. That will be, those accessory structures will have a setback 150 feet. So 400 feet for the data center building, any data center building, 150 feet for any accessory structure. So those will increase. Again, that type of setback is consistent with what is to the north in future developments for the Chicago West Business Center. The preliminary and final plans do compliance with the UDO, and we did develop the development standards at Exhibit B. The standards, we used the current standards in the light industrial and heavy industrial district, and also used a lot with the setbacks that exist for the Chicago West Business Center to the north and for our Candy Company in terms of trying to match those setbacks too, so there's comparable between the two. Also the plat of subdivision, which I did provide. Kind of hard to see certainly in the monitor, but you have a copy. It shows the creation of one lot for the entire project, be one lot subdivision. They do show a 50-foot right-of-way dedication on Guerrilla Road, which is needed to accommodate the improvements. There was a 20-foot easement for the Kishwaukee Water Reclamation District in Route 23. That was removed. The developer and the sanitary district can develop a separate wastewater management agreement.
Is now
separate.
exiting.
The petitioner has requested, so for any additional buildings or construction on the site beyond what's shown here, there's language in the standards and to be in the annexation development agreement. There'll be no further zoning review or public hearings, and it's up to the review by the city manager as long as they meet the development standards and meet the intent of the approved plans in terms of what's being shown. Roadway improvements. Highlight these a little bit. Guerrilla Road will be improved. Three-lane cross-section, very similar to Fairview Drive. There'll be a roundabout at the corner of Peace Road and Guerrilla Road. A roundabout will be added there. And then the continuation of Peace Road into the site. So this is kind of a new idea. There's a couple roundabouts on the west side of the NIU campus. They've been used in other cities and other county transportation departments. But that's something that we felt was really key here and would be very useful in terms of traffic coming off Peace Road, flowing into the site without heavy trucks stopping, et cetera, going to this site and the Fair Canyon Company site. Also, there'll be improvements at the intersection of Route 23 and Guerrilla Road with a signalized intersection and improvements along there.
Christelle is now joining.
There also, I know the Krieger Road vacation, and that cost will be from the representative state reps, Tom Demmer and Jeff Kiker. That'll be from the Rebuild Illinois Capital Plan for the new roadway. Again, a 66-foot right-of-way, two 12-foot drive aisles, similar to Krieger Road. Just note, too, there's a total of $4.6 million in roadway improvements needed along Route 23 to Guerrilla and Peace in that area, and I broke down in the staff report the percentage and costs for each. So from the Rebuild Illinois Capital Plan, about 30%, $1.3 million. From the city of Dekalb, $125,000, 2.7%, and from the private developers, Ferreira and Ventus, $3.1 million, about 67%. Utilities and stormwater drainage, there's two. A big key here is the existing electrical lines to the site, through the site, which will tap into and provide the power needed for the data center. Also, water main will be extended to the site, along the south side to the site, and we'll run along the south side of Guerrilla and then stub into the subject property. As I noted, the Kishwaukee Water Reclamation District working on the sanitary sewer with the developer and also Jerry Krasinski of Chicago West, and that will be provided to the site again, and that will run along the north side of Guerrilla Road and connect into the property. Stormwater detention ponds, you can see there's 4 ponds initially with the first phase, which they'll be developing with the first phase. There's 4 ponds that will handle the stormwater drainage for the property. The report lists the findings of fact for rezoning. I'll go through those. The first one deals with the conformance with the comp plan and the trend of development in the surrounding area. Our comp plan does recommend office research, light industrial, and commercial uses for the site, which they're meeting. Of course, across the street, the Ferreira Candy Company site, the 1.2 million square foot distribution center under construction, and the future packing center. There's additional acreage to the north of Ventus for future similar type uses along with that. So the rezoning of the subject site, the PDI, Plan Development Industrial, fits the comp plan, matches the surrounding zoning, and fits into the surrounding area. Meets the intent, item number 2, the intent of the UDO, meets all the standards of the UDO. It does provide the flexibility for the developer in the city to come up with a plan development that meets the requirements for the developer in the city in terms of the development standards, make sure it's developed properly and per the UDO. We also look at number 3, the impact on the development of the surrounding area. Of course, the trend of development has been the largest distribution center to the north. There is some single-family homes to the west, Route 23 in unincorporated DeKalb County. So with the development of this, extension of utilities will actually upgrade the roadways. With those, will increase the property values in the area and also the potential development for future properties. Although Krieger Road will be vacated, there'll be a new north-south drive roadway constructed just to the east of the site. Also, the PDI, as mentioned, will allow for a continuation of high-quality development under that zoning classification. And finally, item 5, adequate utilities. They're providing roadway improvements, extending water and sewer to the site. There's available electric. There's a water agreement in the annexation development agreement to assure that there be high water capabilities for that data center. Public comments. We did, since the staff report for the April 8th hearing, previously we did receive a correspondence from Joe Gormley, and what I did, I took a map and just showed the subject site here so we can get an orientation of the people who comment where they live or where they own property. That shows the Project Ventus site here, the new roadway plan just east of the site, and then some of the adjacent property owners with their name on it, just to show where they're on their property to give some reference to that. So there was an email initial correspondence with Joe Gormley, who represents 240 acres south of the site. There was a discussion regarding along with Afton Township, the location of the new north-south roadway. It was agreed to that roadway would be noted as shown there through that part of their property. Since the April 8th meeting, we also received correspondence, it was in your packet, from Michael Hammett. Represents about 120 acres to south of the site along Krieger, about a little over a mile from the site. Had concerns regarding, in support the data center, had concerns about the vacation of Krieger Road in relation to the timing of the new road. So it was explained to Mr. Hammett that there was a need for the data center to have that Krieger Road vacated so they could start work on the site, and it was a high secure location. There's other routes to, in terms of that location, they do have a hog confinement operation on the premises, so there are other routes. Certainly they can go to Kessinger and go east or west and north on 23 to access the tollway or areas to the north, and certainly going south too. So that was in your packet. And also you had a resolution from the Dekalb County Economic Development Corporation dated April 10th. That was in your packet. The resolution notes in part the data center generates significant economic benefits to the county in the form of investment, construction, new tax revenue, and job creation. And then since the posting of the agenda Friday, we received several correspondence, which I did provide copies to you in a little summary. So I'll just go through those quickly and have them noted for the record. We also, in addition, we received since Friday a citizen response form from Gerald and Kay Kempson along Krieger Road, just south of the site. That was received April 20th. You see the Kempson property here. There's no buildings on it, just farmland. They noted concern about being landlocked with the vacation of Krieger Road. Should be noted there's no buildings on the site. They won't be landlocked. The access, they still will have access to Krieger Road in front of their property. I think their access for farm equipment's right at the very north end of the property, and there'll be a turnaround up there, so they still have access, you know, off their property. It's not being landlocked. City Manager Nicholas actually had a phone conversation with their attorney representing them, the Kempsons, just noting that there's other routes in terms of access, and the value of the property will actually increase with Project Ventus. Also received a letter from John and Marlene Norse of 350 Gerler Road, dated or received 4/21/20. Their way, here's Gerler and Route 23. They're the homes shown here in unincorporated DeKalb County, noting for the most part some existing drainage issues in their area, and concerned about with the development of Ferrera and Ventus of additional water runoff. So both of these sites will be developed with stormwater management system that meets our UDO, very restrictive right now. The water just kind of runs off the farm property. So with the stormwater detention ponds, water will be detained on site and cannot leave the property at a higher rate. So Actually, it should make the drainage in that area a little bit better. Sounds like from there's some existing drainage issues with the roadways and the ditches in that area. So certainly our city engineer could address some of those drainage issues too if you had any questions on that. Also, we received an email from Jamie Walter, CEO of Whiskey Acres along Kesslinger Road, dated 4/21. I did mark here, Whiskey Acres is right here on the south side of Kesslinger. Mr. Walter noted support of the data center project and mentions the importance of the new road just east of the site with the vacation of Kriego Road. We also received a letter of support from Northern Illinois University dated 4/21/20, signed by President Lisa Freeman and Vice President for Research and Innovation Partnerships, Gerald Blasey. Also, statement of support for the project from the Dekalb County Economic Development Corporation received on 4/21/20, signed by Paul Borg, Executive Director of the DC EDC. In addition, a statement of support for the project from Paul Galligan, 1512 Creighton Circle East in Dekalb, received on 4/21/20. And finally, email dated 4/22/20 from Jerry Wallstrom and Sue Elsner of Century 21 Real Estate in Dekalb, noting support for the project. So I'd like to make all these correspondence part of the record. So in conclusion, the proposed data center will be a transformative development with impact for generations of DeKalb County residents. The project will generate new business opportunities, support existing commerce in the surrounding area, while spurring increased property values and other development opportunities. In addition, the data center will generate significant benefits to the county economy in the form of investment, construction, new tax revenue, and job creation. The staff strongly recommends approval of the project. I do have a sample motion in the staff report. There was a couple small changes in the exhibits. Exhibit A is a list of all the plans and the plat. The plat, there was a small revision with the removal of that sanitary sewer easement on Route 23. So the date of the plat is changed. I highlighted that in yellow. Development standards, Exhibit B, we got more defined on this building setbacks along Route 23. Again, the data center buildings have to be 400 feet back, and the accessory structure 150 feet back, so that's spelled out in Exhibit B. So as part of the motion, you can just know to revise Exhibit A and Exhibit B when there is a motion for approval. That would be it, Chair. Again, we do have our city engineer, city attorney, and the city, or the attorney for the applicant here, if you have any particular questions. Thanks.
Thank you. With that, I'd like to open it up to public comment. We have 4 people that have filled out speaker request forms. I'll take them in the order that they were received. If you would come forward, state your name and your address for me for the record, I would appreciate it. Randy Burdages.
Good afternoon, or actually good evening. Randy Bordages, Supervisor of Afton Township, address 10315 Kesslinger Road in DeKalb. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. First of all, I want to thank the Planning Commission for all the time and you guys spend in looking at developments. And I can say from our township, we're super excited about this development. Ventus is coming in to make a commitment in this community and what they're going to bring. I don't actually know why I'm standing here because this is really a no-brainer, but we fully understand a couple things. First of all, we do have some township residents that are concerned about a closure of a road. Fully understand that. For the record, I spoke to Jerry Kempson on the phone. Know Jerry for a number of years, goes to our church, and him and I had a nice visit. He's not opposed to the development whatsoever. His main concern is the dumping that goes on Kriego Road, and a lot of it hits his property. So there's some things that, as a township, that we can do to expite that, or what I want to say, avoid those kind of situations. Being a vacated road, even with the turnaround, people are going to find places. We have dumping going on all over our county. But like I said, there's some things that we can do. So, like I said, Mr. Kempson is on board with the development, and he fully understands the magnitude of development of this nature, and doesn't want to stop it, but just wants to be on the record what his concerns are. So as a township, I've got my road commissioner here, Jimmy Elliott, as well. And there's things that we'll do as a township and work towards avoiding those problems in the future. The second thing, as a township, we are on board of this project. I want to first go on record saying that Mr. Nicholas has done an outstanding job bringing parties together within our township, other governments within DeKalb County, working towards a solution to establish a new developed road. So we are well aware that there's something that we need to do as an entity of this county, and we're working towards that and partnering up with the other governments to making that happen. And we could not do that, and I'm going to go on record, Mr. Nicholas has been a super advocate. He's done a lot for this city for many years. He comes back and the things that he's able to accomplish. He's just got a very good rapport. I call it the bedside manner, bringing people together and trying to work towards some common ground and making things work. So as Afton Township, we are fully understandable to our residents and getting another road established. How quickly that will happen, time will tell with the things that will have to be put in place to make that all happen. But we will do our best to make sure that happens at some point in time here in the future months. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Randy. The next speaker request was by Cohen Barnes.
Good evening, everyone. Appreciate the opportunity to come up here. I'm Cohen Barnes at 234 Greenwood North, DeKalb, Illinois. I come before you today as president of the DeKalb County Economic Development Corporation. Wish more of our board members could be out here to support it. We did unanimously support tonight's activity as an executive committee, but obviously with the current crisis, it's a little bit difficult to, I don't know if that sounds okay, to get people out here in numbers. So I'm here representing the board of directors for DCDC. I'm also, as you know, a resident of DeKalb, a commercial property owner in DeKalb, and a small business owner in DeKalb. Cannot say enough about how wonderful this project is. When you look at what's going on with Ferrara and now the opportunity that we have with Project Ventus, absolutely transformational to our community on so many levels, from an employment level, from a diversification of the tax base, to the money that the schools are going to receive from this and the opportunity that it gives them. All across the board, this is an absolutely wonderful project, and we just wanted to make sure that you knew that the DCDC, which is the DeKalb County Economic Development Corporation, which is made up of University College, Kishwaukee College is part of our board, City of DeKalb, county board members, private sector, nonprofits. It is a very diverse organization when it comes to the organizations that represent our community, and the support is strong there. We want to encourage you all to continue that support tonight for Project Ventus, because as you know, it's just, it could be a capstone on an amazing couple years, and in light of everything going on right now as well, to have this kind of activity in our community in DeKalb, Illinois is just absolutely fantastic. So that's it. Just wanted to express our support. Wanted to thank you all for your time. And I will reiterate what Randy Bourdet just said about City Manager Nicholas, working with him with the DCDC as a helpful component to Project Ventus. The city manager has been absolutely phenomenal. City staff, including Mr. Olson, everyone here has been incredible to work with, which having been a part of the business community for a long time in our community, may not have been the case all the time, but these last couple of years have been just incredible. So I thank him, I thank the city staff, and I thank all of you for your support of the projects that have come before you. Have a good night.
Thank you very much, Cohen. The next speaker is Matt Swanson.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Commission.
Hi.
Thank you for hearing my comments. My name is Matt Swanson. I'm the president of Laborers Local 32, and I'm also the president of the DeKalb County Building Trades. The Building Trades represents 17 separate construction trades unions, which have a total of over 8,000 members. We support the the proposed data center. This data center will bring needed jobs to the trades. The general contractor has estimated 2 million man-hours of work, of construction work, and they have indicated a need for 800 tradesmen. This data center will transform DeKalb County. The data center will bring in taxes equal to or greater than the sum of the taxes from Goodyear, Nestle, Panduit, and Target combined. The data center is considered essential work, and therefore the work will continue through this COVID-19 crisis. In addition to the construction trade jobs created by the data center, they will be employing 50 people in permanent, well-paying jobs. The hundreds of tradesmen and women, many of whom live in DeKalb County, will contribute to the local economy. They will purchase food, fuel, and other necessary items. The tax base, construction jobs, permanent jobs, and transformational nature of this project are all reasons that the building trades unions are proud to support this essential project. We sincerely hope that you will join us in our support of this important project. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you for making that publicly known, taking the time to.
Yes.
And lastly, we have Lance McGill.
Thank you, Commissioner, for taking the time to hear from us. Lance McGill, 3715 Pebble Beach Court, DeKalb, Illinois. Here in two capacities tonight. I live within sight of this facility, DeKalb City and Afton Township, and I'm also a business representative for the IUOE, International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. As a citizen of DeKalb and of the 4th Ward, I live across the street from, former council member Pat Fagan lived. I'll be able to see this project out my front door, and it may sound illogical, but my wife and I are excited to see this come. When Pat stepped down, I was one of the people that talked with the mayor about fulfilling that role, and I had a lot of concerns about the 4th Ward. 4th Ward, to me, seemed kind of neglected over the years, just through the way Peace Road has developed, 23, that whatnot. So it's been really exciting to see the things happening now with Ferreira and with this project. Glad to see there's a berm that's going to go up that will help with our view. But I liken it, it's progress and it's good jobs coming. Matt Swanson earlier talked about 2 million man hours for this job. In terms of our wages, that's $180 million going in the pockets of men and women of DeKalb County. So as a business representative, as a citizen, we like seeing the tax base come in locally here. This job is something that could have easily gone somewhere else. We all know that Rochelle is constantly trying to build anything they can, and they'll cut whatever deal they can. So very happy to see this come here, and to echo everyone else's statements. Mr. Nicholas did an excellent job for us, providing us with as much information as he could, given the nature of this project and the secrecy behind it. Couldn't be happier with what Bill's done for us. So again, as a citizen and as a representative of Local 150, we really like to see this project go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Lance. We sincerely appreciate your comments. And with that, I will close the public hearing.
Maybe when I ask if there's any additional.
Are there any additional comments? Okay. With that, I'll close the public hearing and open it up to discussion by the commission. Any questions?
I have no questions. I think it's a wonderful project. I'm excited to see it get started.
Yeah, I concur.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I'm not against the project at all. I hear a lot of comments about how wonderful it's going to be, and I hope that turns out to be true. I always am concerned when we take a big hunk of farmland and convert it into something else. That's 80% of a section. That's a lot of land to go in one swoop. So nothing much can be done about it now, but I wish we'd think more about preserving our farmland in the future. Today is Earth Day, so it might be a good day to think about that. According to my calendar, it's Earth Day anyway. And so I grew up in DeKalb County. I own farmland in DeKalb County. I've set mine up so it's going to be preserved. And I would hope that we would give some thought to that in the future. My experience with these developments is that I'm assuming there's quite a few farm tile in that property that maybe nobody even knows about at this time, and when the bulldozers come in and start tearing up the land, they tear up those tile. So I would hope the developer will take care of that problem, and if neighboring land is damaged, they will be responsible for it and take care of it. And finally, of course, we already know that the road system is going to be disturbed, and they're going to put in new roads to, a new road at least, to protect some of the people that are landlocked or almost landlocked. We're getting into the season where they'll start farming this year if it quits raining. And big farm equipment, sometimes they need plenty of access. So hopefully the present access will not be closed until they can utilize the replacement access. I'm not against the project per se. I just think those are things that need to be considered and concern me at least.
Thanks, Ron. Any other comments? I'd like to say that I sincerely appreciate everybody coming out in what's kind of a precarious situation tonight to support this. I do agree that it's a transformative project, and thank you for spacing yourselves, but thank you for taking the time to come and make your thoughts known on this. With that, I will ask for a motion by one of the members.
I'll make the motion. I'd like to...
Motion by Flaherty?
Yes. Based on the submitted petition and testimony presented, I move the Planning and Zoning Commission forward its finding of fact and recommend to the City Council approval of a zoning map amendment upon the annexation from the SFR1 Single Family Residential District to the PDI Planned Development Industrial District, and approval of a preliminary and final development plan and subdivision plat as listed in Exhibit A for an approximately 505-acre property generally located east of State Route 23 and south of Gurla Road for a data center and accessory uses and subject to the development standards listed in Exhibit B.
Seconded?
Second.
Seconded by Wright. All in favor, say aye.
Let's,
I'm sorry, motion to approve.
Just one note on the motion, make sure it, with the first and second, that it's the revised Exhibit A and B that was handed out?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Revised Exhibit A and B.
Yeah, and then I'll do a roll call.
Roll call, please.
Becker?
Yes.
Buckley? O'Flaherty?
Yes.
Klein?
Yes.
Doe?
yes,
Wright?
Yes.
Chair Maxwell?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And with that, we'll move to the second item on the agenda. Public hearing petition by the City of Dekalb to add a definition for data center and to add it as permitted use in the ORI, LI, and HI zoning districts, and to be C and PDI zoning districts, and to provide for a process for approval of minor changes to the final plan and the plat of the subdivision for plan developments over a certain size. Presentation by the city.
Yes, thank you. This is a city-initiated text amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance, in part related to the Project Ventus project. This relates to adding a definition and the term data center to our UDO. We have similar uses currently in UDO, offices, research laboratories, which we could have perhaps defined data center under, but we wanted to be very clear and add the specific term data center to the UDO as with the definition, and proposing to add it as a permitted use in the 3 industrial districts. Also, there's a slight amendment to the Plan Development Industrial District and PDC regarding uses. And finally, there's an amendment providing for a process for approval of minor changes to the final plat and plat for plan developments over a certain size. So I'll briefly go through the specific changes which are pointed out or described in Exhibit A. Adding definition for data center, that's added to Article 3. We use the definition provided by the applicant for Project Ventus. Fully includes a full definition description, including accessory uses. Adding data center to the permitted use list for the ORI, Office Research Light Industrial District, the Light Industrial District, and the Heavy Industrial District. In the Plan Development Industrial District, PDI, and also for the PDC, there's language in there right now that states if a development's in a PDI or PDC, then only specific uses that are listed in the UDO in those underlying districts can be allowed. So we're taking out only for future reference other plan developments, and just leaving in may include, not only include. And again, we're adding the term data center to the 3 industrial districts. So this will be beneficial to future plan developments, which oftentimes include a mix of uses. So we just want to not have only in there, just have may. And finally, in the plan development section also, amendment, that all amendments, changes, revisions to the final plat or plat of subdivision for plan developments over 500 acres in common ownership. Any changes that constitutes a minor change, and that those are approved by the city manager or designee, as long as the development, whatever the change is, complies with the development standards and the underlying zoning. So those are recommended for approval. We do, there's a sample motion listed, and again, these are in conjunctions for the most part with the Project Ventus, and clear up some things in the UDO.
Open to public comment? Obviously not. With that, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
I don't have it in front of me.
Is that Becker?
I don't have it in front of me.
Oh, there's a sample motion in the staff report.
All right.
Yeah, wait.
Jerry's
got it. Way to save the day.
All right. Based upon the submitted petition and testimony presented, I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission forward its finding of fact and recommend to the City Council approval of a special use permit for a,
That's the wrong one. Yep. That's the next one.
I was so excited about
Somebody have it?
I don't. I thought I had it in the
Hold
packet,
on.
but I do not.
Based on the submitted petition and testimony presented, I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to the City Council approval of City of DeKalb initiated text amendments to Chapter 23, Unified Development Ordinance, UDO, of the Municipal Code to add a definition for data center and to add it as a permitted use in the ORI, LI, and HI zoning districts, to remove the requirement that only certain specific uses be allowed in the PDC and PDI zoning districts, and to provide for a process for approval of minor changes to the final plan and plat of subdivision for plan developments over certain size as indicated in the attached Exhibit A.
So moved by Becker. Second?
Second.
Second by Klein. All in favor, say aye. Oh, I'm sorry, roll call.
Becker?
Yes.
Buckley? O'Flaherty?
Yes.
Klein?
Yes.
Doe?
yes,
Wright?
yes.
Chair Maxwell?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Bear with us for 1 second. And in that moment, let me compliment everybody on having outstanding hairstyles that they've had to have managed for the last 5 weeks of their life. Good job, everybody.
and there's a reason why I'm not there tonight.
Chicken. The third item on the agenda is a petition by NewMed Partners LLC for the approval of special use permit for a cannabis business establishment in order to locate an adult use and medical cannabis dispensary at 818 West Lincoln Highway.
Well, once they come in and get set, we'll have the applicant, they will be talking first, give their presentation.
Good evening.
I'll get the slides up here in a second.
You ready for me, Dan?
Yes, go ahead when you're ready.
Okay. Again, good evening. My name is Jim Hughes. I'm with Next Generation Development. We're a developer out of Wheaton. We do residential, commercial, and some other stuff, and we're co-petitioner with New Med. Bob Fitzsimmons will be up shortly because I'm just going to do a very short introduction. Sure. Okay. I didn't want to make sure. I want to make sure I got the correct distance. So anyway, so just a short, brief history on how we arrived on what we're looking at. And Mr. Fitzsimmons will give much more details as to operations and functionality of the other dispensaries that he has. We loved the location. We were looking something that had some accessibility to downtown, but not in downtown because we didn't want to have a parking issue per se. We loved the availability to the campus. We loved the availability to I-88 on Annie Glidden. So we thought all those conditions put together along with the parking, it was an ideal situation. The size is perfectly sized for what we want to do. I believe it was a Book World, Dan? Okay, so I'm sure you all know much better than I do where and what it is. So we're thrilled to be out here and to be talking. Dan's been very, very helpful, as has Bill. And we're thrilled to be out here, and hopefully we can get a positive recommendation from you. I think we did waive the second reading, correct, Dan?
That request will go to the council, not
Okay.
really for
Yes,
the commission.
yes, exactly. So without any further, because I'm sure you know where it is, you know what it is, you want to know how it works, and I'm going to ask Mr. Fitzsimmons to walk through that with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry, I thought I'd turn that off. We will take care of it now. My name is Bob Fitzsimmons. I run a series of companies that do primarily medical marijuana. In the past iteration, we did the bill actually because I have a public affairs company that authorized marijuana initially, and we are active depending on the time of year in 6 or 8 different states. We've done the best pill and tab in the state of Colorado, which includes THC. We did the whole harvest rollout, which includes the best vapor in the state of Arizona. We ultimately took them public in Canada. We have done Illinois kind of backwards because I was a consultant for somebody who applied for licenses, and then they were pharmacists, and we told them they were going to have some issues with that. When they had the issues, we wound up buying them out. But now we have a vertically integrated operation here in Illinois, which also has products and also has a cultivation center, soon to be publicly announced somewhere near you. And so the vertical integration is new for us. In most other states, we just do the products, and we're primarily medical until this recent iteration. But we will have 6 stores by the end of the year in Illinois, and we've applied for 35 more. In the current climate, you're not going to get a good yield, it's particularly because you're capped at 10. And so we're hoping to come up with other licenses. We've applied for under three different names and 3 different SEA categories. If you're familiar with the statute, it heavily weights social equity, and so we have different groups of veterans and people who live in the disproportionately impacted areas and others who we financed. So if it isn't a New Med or New Era, which is our name, it's soon to be changed, we're dropping the medical and becoming New Era medical cannabis. But we will have several other groups that come from different parts of the state and again hit these weighted categories, including veterans and the disproportionately impacted. So Dekalb would have to fall into that category. And again, we have 3 different groups that are applying here. I'm sure there are many other applicants because college towns are very popular in the rec era to apply. Our most relevant experience besides Chicago, where we have the best located dispensary on River North, at least currently. There'll be a lot more in that crowded downtown area when they're finished. But we have Urbana, which is right at Carl Hospital, if you know the campus down there. Highly medical. We have a strong referral from doctors in that area and in Peoria. We have more cancer patients than anyone in the state. And so we still run a highly medical operation. We have early hours that are only for medical patients. We have lockdown hours in the COVID era, but we also have special programs that mitigate the effect on communities. For example, we have 75% of our orders are done online pre-order. We have very short wait times for both categories. Medical's a little longer because medical people need a consultation typically. Your average patient is in and out in 5 minutes. And so we've done what we can to mitigate the impact on neighbors. We feel we run a very streamlined operation. I know security and other issues are sometimes delved into at depth, so we're going to reserve that subject for questions. But if you have any other questions on the general nature of our enterprise, be happy to answer those.
Thank you, Bob. With that, I'll open it up to questions by the public.
I can go through the staff report.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For that.
Didn't mean to jump the gun on you.
No problem. I have a staff report, and the packet has a good description by the applicant of the company, what they're proposing. Again, this is a Junction shopping center, the former Book World at 818 West Lincoln. The aerial shows the tenant space there, about 6,600 square feet. Space, the zoning is light commercial district. When we amended the UDO last year, we've had medical cannabis allowed in the city for a few years, and we added the adult use recreational cannabis. Last year, created a term cannabis business establishment, which per the UDO is an adult use cannabis dispensary and a medical dispensary. So that's a special use in the light commercial district, which the zoning is, so they applied for a special use permit for their particular location. The applicant went over very well with their background of the company. They have 3 locations in Illinois currently, Chicago, East Peoria, and Urbana. They provided a background and a really good summary of their company and the supporting docs. We did share so they do show the site location there. They do have submitted a floor plan and a security device location plan at our request. We've shared the information with our police department, and they've taken an initial look at that. One of the conditions we have, which we did for the medical cannabis dispensary on Peace Road, approved, requested a security plan be approved with our police department prior to final occupancy of the tenant space. So I've shared everything with the police department so far, and they're taking a look through that, and they've been answering all the questions regarding their concerns so far. So in the article, or in the UDO with the cannabis business establishments, we do have some other standards related to these dispensaries. One of these is a setback, 250 feet to any residential zoning property with dwelling units or apartment complex. Any residential property, also same setback, 250 feet to any school, daycare center, nursery school. So with the setback to residential, there is a, this one probably shows it the best, a apartment complex to the west, about 315 feet away from the tenant space, which is located here, meeting that 250 feet. With the 250 feet, I did add in, it wasn't in your packet, with that setback, what this graphic shows, we worked on some maps that show, in light green shows the area. If you take all the setbacks from the residential properties, daycare centers, schools, and map that out, the areas in green show the possible locations for cannabis dispensaries. So on West Lincoln Highway with apartments interdispersed with the commercial areas, kind of all that whole stretch, there's not that too many areas. So the black star shows the location of the junctions where their tenant space will be. You see it's in the green area. So there wasn't a whole lot really to choose from. They looked at several different locations and tried to find one that met all the requirements. So they're beyond the 250 feet from a residential. We did an updated check through the state for all the licensed daycare centers and checked those. There's none within 250 feet of this particular location. So they're meeting all those requirements. In terms of parking, again, the Book World, there is a parking requirement for cannabis dispensaries. It's the same as any other commercial retail use, one space for every 250 square feet of floor area. Same as a book world, so there's really no additional parking required. I did ask the applicant for a count of the parking and the gross square footage of the center there to get an idea where we're at with parking. Of course, it's been there for decades, a long time. So there's about 41,831 square feet of gross leasable area in the L-shaped building and the three buildings on the west side of the site. That does not include the Pizza Villa building in the parking lot, which is owned separately and shown there. So if you take this formula, you'd be required 167 spaces. There's a total of 170 spaces, so they do have adequate parking. I would also note too, our parking requirements, it's a net floor area, so you take out restrooms, areas primarily for storage, mechanical rooms, so actually they have more than 4 extra spaces actually, so we didn't get that count. I just got a gross square footage which is adequate. So parking is provided and meets the UDO. As noted last November, the city did approve a medical cannabis dispensary on 700 Peace Road for BQ Enterprises. They've applied through the state. They anticipate hearing back, they told me, in May on their license application. So the state, of course, has a lot of regulations on these. They review them separately. What we focus on is the special use findings of fact for particular locations. So, and we do have a limit in the city of 5 adult use cannabis dispensaries in the city. Obviously, we're not there yet. So I just wanted to point out what we approved at 700 Peace Road. With that, and we've recommended here too, the one on Peace Road is a 1-year time frame to obtain the license from the state. And then after that, 6 months to complete the tenant, build out and occupy the space. So we're recommending those same time frames for this. In addition to the requirement that their security plan approved by the police department prior to occupancy. The report includes the standards for special use. The first one looks at the if it meets all the applicable district regulations, which it does, meets our comp plan, it's adequate parking. They have a security plan approved by the police department as a condition. We look at the surrounding neighborhood. Is it going to be detrimental to the surrounding properties? It's been commercial zoning for decades. It fits very well within the surrounding area and the other uses in the shopping center. Nearest residential property is apartment complex to the west, around the 350 feet away. Also, we take a look at the, dominate the immediate area development. Much of the surrounding area, of course, is already developed with commercial, variety of commercial, some residential properties. Fits in very well. It's close to NIU. It's along a busier roadway. Plenty of parking, so they have adequate utilities already provided to the site. They provided a security plan that will be reviewed by your police department. It shows in detail what they're going to be doing out there, and they have adequate parking. So, and it's going to be a benefit to the public health, safety, and morals of the community with the cannabis dispensary. No citizen or public comments have been received at the city as of tonight. Okay. So in conclusion, we'd recommend approval. There's a sample motion provided in the staff report.
Okay. If there's no public comments, with that, I'll close the public hearing and ask if there are questions from the council members.
Sure. Are your other facilities as large as this one?
So there's a range of facilities that were based on the buildings available at the time. Chicago is undersized. We are actually going to triple the size of it by moving across North Avenue from 3,300 to about 10,000 square feet. We already have 7,700 square feet in Urbana, so that one is sized appropriately for the rec era. We've bought a 8,000 square foot building in Peoria, right next to the casino, that we are going to open a dual location in Peoria. So this is slightly undersized for the locations we're doing now. But it's certainly bigger than many of the dispensaries that opened in the first round.
In these places, you address similar populations. Do you feel like this population of people here will benefit you here?
So it's interesting, when people say a college town, and I think DeKalb's widely accepted as having strengths in many areas, but NIU is obviously a dominant player in town. People think, oh, that's college students. It's quite interesting. Most of because our products are quite expensive, most of our customers are actually university administrators or professors or non-students. So the target population we're looking at is a demographic that's above standard for rural Illinois, a more sophisticated consumer base. You got that automatically in a college town. That's part of the reason we looked at Dekalb. That's part of the reason we put in 3 applications to make sure we got a license here, if possible, because the demographic is nearly ideal.
What are your anticipated revenues for a place like this?
So it's interesting. You can't really use historical experience because medical, the customer buys more in the average visit. Particularly cancer patients actually spend quite a bit, but there are far fewer of them. So it depends on how quickly traffic ramps. In Chicago, we saw traffic ramp dramatically. In Urbana, less so. And so if you pick the midpoint, of that, last year stores were doing 2 to 3 million. We expect well-located stores will triple that when a fully developed rec era, at least triple that.
And I thought I heard Dan talk about you addressing some of the concerns by the police here, and what are some of those concerns that they?
It's a good question. Actually, in the locations, we've now had 9 locations approved at different parts around the state, and in more than half, some of our first questions or our first visits, because we were directed by a mayor or a council person, have been to the police departments. This is the 2nd location we've applied to in the shadow of a police station. I mean, this is a very good thing for us because while we've had no security problems historically, being in the shadow of a police station is a very good thing, I think, for this demographic. And so, nature of the questions already here, are there some characteristics of this building that they'd like to make sure?
Is now exiting.
They'd like to make sure are evaluated, like there was some issue with roof hatches on this building. We said absolutely. We're more than happy to make sure there isn't anything unusual about this building that would make it problematic. We've gone through that analysis with them. They are still reserving the right to review the final security plan because the state may make changes. The security plan that we have currently is 60-some pages long, but ties to this multicolored map with cameras in each room. And so it's going to take a while for them to drill down on it if they haven't looked at a similar plan like that. And we're more than happy as the plan evolves in the planning process to spend whatever time they need to get comfortable with it. They've asked for camera feeds to be available, at least externally. If the state does permit that currently, but we're under regulation from the state as to how we deal with those cameras. They have some not only public safety, but privacy issues that relate to them. But anything we're allowed to do, we will absolutely do to help the police force. Apparently there's issues in that parking lot or this or that. We're more than happy to provide camera feeds if that's helpful. They've asked questions about security around the clock. We do not provide security around the clock, only during business hours, but we have 24/7, 365 camera access in every room and in every view from the exterior, and we have to keep it for a good fraction of a year. So, except with the possible exception of banks and jewelry stores, these have the highest security in the state.
All right. And I'm sure that you get better as you create more, you learn something. What are some things you've learned that you hope to do better here from the other establishments?
So it's interesting. We've seen a number of other providers, and I don't want to mention names, I don't want to be negative, but they weren't ready for what can be a ramp up in business. What I've started to tell you in my overview and would be happy to elaborate on is we think customer experience is essential. So for example, on January 1st, when people had people standing in line, we had in our Chicago location in particular, 6 cave rooms across the street. You were not allowed to line up. You had to go across the street. We served you breakfast, lunch, or dinner because people were there all day. We had rooms for people watching football. January 1st, we still had sports. And, we basically made it an opportunity for the 33,000 hits we got on that day to collect information, to tell them why they wouldn't be served that day, why we were more than happy to meet their needs, if they took us up on the invitation, they'd get an appointment within the next 3 to 5 days to come back in a slot of 45 minutes. But we do not encourage lines. We do not encourage foot traffic. It's much better customer experience if you can do most of it online. We notice medical customers patients aren't necessarily as able or as familiar to do that. So what we've learned is that we have private hours for medical patients, where it's quieter, where we serve fewer patients, where if they can't reserve in advance, we give them an individual consult. So we try to be specific to both what's happening in the world, like January 1st was the opening of REC, and that we have a very important stream of customers, the medical customers, that we intend to still serve.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Several. Adult use, I'm assuming, is synonymous with recreational.
Yes.
You said, as you were looking at your numbers, you anticipate about $6 million or more in annual sales at this location. What percentage of that do you perceive to be recreational?
So right now, we actually have augmented our medical cards quite a bit, and if you understand the taxation structure, you know why. I mean, you are paying, if you're a customer, as much as 30% less if you have a medical card. And so for us, our traffic is running still close to 50-50.
Okay. And then servicing your customer base online. If it's recreational, they have to go through a procedure to verify that they're of legal age in order to...
Yes, first step online.
And how's that done?
So you have to have a driver's license that you show a picture of when you upload, and then you have to show the same driver's license when you pick it up. So what we do is, you are now, in the year of COVID, 100% required for adult use to do your ordering online. And then you pick it up through either curbside or you pick it up at the window outside. We're trying not to mix the populations of medical and adult use more than we have to. But you verify twice. You also verify twice in the store. If you look at our entry booth, you'll put up your credentials there, but you will be asked to give your credentials again at the point of sale window.
In the packet, as I was reading it, it indicated that your customers would not be able to see or smell the product.
So if you're familiar with other states, if you go to Colorado in particular, which is where the experience we had, Colorado and Arizona were the two states we started in, you have a very experiential opportunity. They have not a ball mason jar, but one of these jars with a cap, and you can smell the product. Most people don't allow you to touch it for reasons, especially if they're allowed to sell it after that. But you can smell, look at under lights, get the sense of the product you're buying. In Illinois, everything has to be pre-sealed, pre-measured, pre-labeled. And so we have display cases. If you look at the center, you'll see 6 or 8 display cases where you can get within this distance of the package, and where the package is, you can view the product through it. Those are primarily the ones we put in the display cases. But other than that, you can't touch it, you can't smell it. Illinois has very strict requirements.
I think that's it. Thank you.
I have a question. Earlier this year, an article appeared in our local newspaper, and it was reporting on the health departments in the northern Illinois Rockford region, which includes Dekalb County, and the findings that the health department had issued. And they say for young people, marijuana can impair short-term memory, learning, and intelligence, and the brain is still developing until the age of 25, according to the release. I assume most of the people at Northern, the students, will be 25 or younger, so I thought that was relevant. The release warns that 1 in 10 marijuana users will become addicted. Higher concentrations of the THC have been linked to increased risk of addiction, according to the release, and regular use increases the risk of developing anxiety, depression, and schizophrenia. Smoking marijuana can also harm lung tissue and damage small blood vessels, according to the release. They also warn against driving or performing other tasks if you have used marijuana. Do you agree with those findings?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm happy to elaborate, but the answer is yes.
Yeah, you can elaborate. I'm curious as to why you want to be in the business of something that you agree with.
So the state of Illinois chose a 21 limit because it's more like alcohol. Between you and me, I would have suggested a 25 limit, right, for that reason. 28 is in some studies. Yeah, this is very similar to alcohol, however. I mean, the curse of the Irish, using an Irish surname. I mean, people are prone to abuse substances. what we have done on several levels, in fact, the mayor of Urbana asked us first, the prior mayor, because the administration's changed, had substance abuse in the family, as Governor Rauner did, who we had a discussion with at the time. He wasn't in office when we passed this bill, but shortly after that. You know, the substance abuse runs in a lot of families, and people have very strong feelings about it. I do not believe that this is as addictive, even as alcohol, and certainly not as addictive as painkillers and other things that marijuana is actually adaptively being used to fix. So, for example, when we came back and did another bill just a year and a half ago, you may have seen it, it's the opioid bill. If you had an opioid prescription, you could come in and show it and get marijuana, in theory, to be used instead. There's a huge report out from Johns Hopkins today that actually has a valid effect on the opioid crisis, that people, it is less addictive and it has less side effects. So you can choose your poison in some ways, but there's no question this is addictive. There's no question that some people have severe psychoanalytic effects and become paranoid because of it. I mean, it's alcohol, of course, you could go through a litany of problems with as well.
I understand if somebody uses both at the same time, that's extremely dangerous.
I'm not an expert on that aspect of it, but I can tell you that's equally true of alcohol in public and prescriptive medicine. We've actually been involved in some public efforts there. You don't want to cross your issues. And so what we do is we actually have supported several initiatives, including the one in Urbana, and we did a study down there in terms of how to encourage responsible use. We have groups where therapists and others come in, and we have a big back space in Urbana, and we have lent that to groups. We have an education space here, and we will lend it to groups that have an interest in substance abuse, but both ways. This can be a very positive effect on people who are addicted to opioids, widely recognized now, and that bill passed 43-6. We had to barter for every vote in the Senate to get the original medical bill done. Now there's 86% approval, Paul Simon's survey in Illinois, of medical marijuana. I agree, there are definitely some things to think about. You know, my children, when I talk to them about this issue, they're all adults, but that still doesn't mean they don't get a good lecture on why you wouldn't abuse this any more than you abuse alcohol or prescription medication.
Thank you.
To that point, I'm just curious. I mean, obviously, Illinois has some substance abuse programs. Have they ramped anything specifically since they've adopted the acceptance of marijuana?
So it's interesting. We have asked that question. We were actually just in discussions with Roosevelt University because someone, when we were doing our zoning downtown, said, would you allocate some time and effort to this? I'm very interested in it. Hospitals and drug addiction clinics, less so, because I mean, they're not really focused in most cases on anything other than abstinence, with the exception of a program called Smart Recovery, if you're familiar with it. So we have offered actually to have interactive groups of the physicians who recommend marijuana, what would they recommend it for, what would they not recommend it for, and to have public education work through groups like Smart Recovery to say, if you have an addictive personality, the last thing you should do is pile on another potential addictive substance. You know, perfectly valid point, one that the public should be aware of.
Thank you. Other questions?
So I actually have a question. I did not see anywhere in the backup about, and not that there would need to be, but what do you anticipate the hours of operation to be?
So the state regulates hours of operation. We have been running, we had been running 10 to 5. That was a problem in part because it cut off the end of the business day when we had a business day. And so we typically now run 10 to 6. We haven't been open after dark in any location except in the winter, this winter when we moved from 5 to 6. And we're going to keep an eye on that as you know the markets reopen. It may well be that the hours move into the 8 p.m. range in Chicago. That's what people are encouraging, but we have not done it yet. It's not like bars where you're open late in the evening.
When other places had opened, on the news you could see the long lines. So how would you anticipate, or do you have a plan in place to deal with long lines of people waiting to get in to purchase?
Sure. So we do electronic queue management. You aren't allowed to stand in line.
And I ask this because that shopping center is such a busy area. You know, I'd hate to see people just hanging out in the parking lot, you know, whatever.
Sure. So we do electronic queue management. We didn't allow people to wait in line on the first day. We haven't had it since because everybody understood that you weren't going to get in if you showed up without a text back. We do have certain periods where there's downtime now in Chicago. I mean, the kind of the party atmosphere that was January 1st has passed. People have gotten more regularized in their use. And so there are hours in the middle of the day where you could have walked in before COVID and had an appointment. Now you can't. It's all electronic queue. And so we will manage other times when there are increased use the same way. It's primarily electronic queue management, but it's also now 100% required pre-ordering. So there are only 10 people allowed in a store in the first era of electronic ordering. We're now up to 30 because people have gotten quite used to it, and they don't come in the store and ask more questions. This is their third order, and it works seamlessly. We also have off-site parking. If there's a particular period where there is an issue, we park employees off-site. In the city, we do ride-sharing coupons, so we only have 12 spots in the city, but it's plenty in the city because we offer, an Uber pass or a fill in the blank so that we encourage them to come by a different means. So, it's learned by doing. Some people learn slowly. There are certainly some examples in Illinois in particular where it wasn't managed well, but we take pride in having managed it, I think, very effectively.
Okay, I have one more question. So you had talked about the fact that there would be very little smell because of the way that Illinois regulates the amount and how it's packaged and kept in your store. Should there be an issue with any smell or something along those lines, do you have plans for the ventilation system to ventilate outside of the building so it's not floating through to the other businesses? How do you plan on handling that should the need arise?
So we haven't had that problem. I mean, we're right next to a high-end dental clinic in Peoria, and there is no problem. We did have the question when we got a special use in Aurora, and we showed them our experience elsewhere, but we also said we'd make sure the ventilation was not combined. I mean, you can't have an issue if your air circulation actually cuts across. So we will verify that it doesn't, and we will make sure that each space has HVAC independently. There are charcoal filters and other devices you can use, particularly at cultivation centers that are in urban centers. They don't work particularly well, and they're for a different purpose, where the air is really saturated with a heavy, moist cannabis smell. I'll tell you frankly, the only smell of cannabis that's in facilities like this comes from customers, right? Their clothes that they have, has a certain smell, to be polite, when they come in, particularly, the average hoodie you want social distancing from for more than one reason. And so you can't really regulate what your customers wear, but that's, we don't have major problems with the product. It can't be opened by anyone, including staff on premises.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
With that, I will ask for a motion to approve.
You wanted to speak from the floor?
Oh, I'm sorry. Anyone want to speak publicly about it? Any comments? No? With that, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
I guess it's me.
It is.
Based on the submitted petition and testimony presented, I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission forward its finding of fact and recommend to the City Council approval of a special use permit for a cannabis business establishment, adult use and medical cannabis dispensary for the property located at 818 West Lincoln Highway in the tenant space as shown on Exhibit A and subject to the conditions listed in Exhibit B.
So moved by O'Flaherty, seconded.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Bucker. Roll call for a vote, please.
Becker?
Yes.
Buckley? O'Flaherty?
Yes.
Klein?
No.
Doe?
Yes.
Wright?
Yes.
Chair Maxwell?
Yes.
Motion's approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Are there any staff reports?
Just note, next scheduled meeting's May 6th. No public hearings have been set, so unless something comes up doesn't require a hearing, that'll be canceled. We'll let the commission know as that day approaches. Recent city council action, they approved on second reading, the special use permit for the towing operation on 110 Industrial Drive on the April 13th meeting. And as noted, the Project Ventus, all the approvals will be on next Monday's meeting, April 27th, for first and second reading.
Anything to report from the committee?
I move we adjourn.
Moved by Klein to adjourn, seconded?
Second.
Seconded by Wright. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. And with that, I thank you all for participating and coming.
Thank you all.